Good afternoon, church, or whenever you are watching this video, good day to you. The staff in our staff meeting today decided it would be a good idea for us to chat with you directly. You may have heard in worship on Sunday the good news that case rates in Snohomish County have been going down and are continuing on a downward trend to the point that we are able to look at our risk mitigation procedures. Our COVID task force has met, our worship committee has met, and we are able to shift some of our worship procedures to reflect the lowered case rate in our county, the lowered risk of infection across our community. So the first area that we are going to shift our worship practice is in communion. We've heard from several of you how important it is for you to be able to commune together in the sanctuary. And so we are making that the first shift in our worship practices. If you'd like more details about what's guiding our shifts, there is a chart on your screen to see the details of not only what numbers we're looking for to guide us in when we are ready for a different phase, but also what medically is recommended at each phase in terms of how we care for one another, especially how we care for the most vulnerable among us. And that includes all of your staff. And so we take very seriously the care that we provide to one another.
So let's take a slightly closer look at this chart. We see here that our first row across is for the county level cases per 100,000 in a week. Currently, we're in this orange section between 50 and 99. Of course, we hope that we will not be spending much time here, that we will go to yellow directly. But of course, if we find that this is just a respite and we find ourselves climbing back up towards red, this chart helps us decide what to do in that event as well. And this helps us make decisions as individuals and as an individual organization, what will be safest for the people who are likely to come into our buildings. This chart is developed by Dr. Katherine, Jetelina, and some colleagues. They are all epidemiologists who are looking at what we know about the science surrounding COVID-19 and what we know about the various risk factors that are associated with some common activities. So you see that in the orange section where we are currently, we are still being careful and vigilant around our folks who are more vulnerable, including the immunocompromised, folks who might be grandparents or great-grandparents or very young. All of those folks, we're still keeping them in mind during this kind of orange stage, keeping them in mind always, but in particular as we're making decisions about our risk mitigation.
So masks are still required in all of Trinity's buildings, and that is not one of the things that we're looking at changing anytime soon. So we thank you for continuing to show care to one another in that way. So in this video, one of the things we want to do is kind of walk through how we will do communion distribution so that you have a sense of what to expect if you're able to worship with us in person in this coming Sunday and hopefully the Sundays after that. So when it's time to distribute communion, I will bring the plate with the communion kits down. Playing the role of the usher will be Katherine. Playing the role of the congregant will be Tanya. So I'll meet the usher here in the back, and we will commune starting from the back. If you're sitting with multiple people in the row, you will grab enough communion kits for your whole row and distribute through the row. So we will say, "The body and blood of Jesus Christ given and shed for you," and you'll say those words or similar words to the rest of the people in your pew. Body and blood of Jesus Christ given and shed for you.
After you have received your kit, these are the ones we've been using for a couple months. They are gluten-free and they have grape juice. You'll open the side with the little wafer first, and then you can flip it over, have the little bit of juice. You are invited to very quickly lift your mask or pull it down very quickly, consume those. return your mask to your place, collect your garbage, because then the ushers, as I'll demonstrate in just a moment, will come by to collect the leftovers. After the elements of communion have been distributed and everyone has communed, an usher will come by with a basket to collect the refuse from your kits. So, you'll notice in what we discussed today that we're only discussing communion. We're not addressing any of the other aspects of our worship life together that have been affected by the changes we've made during COVID-19 and that we will continue to hold on to for a little while yet. So, for instance, as of right now, we are not de-implementing the RSVP system. We're not changing how worship is structured in that we are still not singing. Now, I understand you, as well as I, may be carrying some grief about that. And it is an appropriate thing to lament that we have not been able to sing together in in-person worship yet. Just a quick reminder, the reason that we've chosen that for this community, for this time, is that singing is the most dangerous of the activities that we would be doing as a congregation in general terms, in terms of the pandemic itself. So to that end, keeping in mind that we are centering the most vulnerable among us, rather than centering those of us who are most healthy or those of us who have the most resources, we are choosing to center those who do not, because they are important to us and we care for them. And so we wait, not forever, but for now. So we will wait to de-implement some of those other risk mitigations until we have worked our way a little bit further along the safety in the chart that we talked about earlier in the video. Just a quick reminder, this chart is what our COVID response team has recommended we as a congregation adopt as we begin our de-implementation process. And a reminder that these numbers up at the top of the chart are what we check every single week. Right now we are in orange, we are praying for yellow. If we go back up into red, well, we'll revisit that when that happens. But for now, we have this respite, we are in this orange section, and using this chart and the article that accompanied it to help us make those decisions in the days ahead.
So thank you for your attention to this video. Thank you for continuing to hold our worship life in your prayers and for all of the ways that you are still able to connect with our congregation, with one another, and most importantly, the ways that we continue to be connected to Christ and through Christ. That also has not changed throughout this pandemic. And so I invite you to worship with us in the ways that you are able, here in the sanctuary or continuing online.